Today's slate for MLB DFS has a little bit of something for everyone. If you are like me and you like spending as much as possible in pitcher, just because you want those strikeouts, you want the high upside stuff, you got Garrett Cole at $12,300. If you don't want to allocate all your salary towards pitcher, but also want a high upside guy who gets strikeouts, you can do so via Darvish or Walker Bueller. Or if you're someone who wants to go down and try to save some salary, differentiate from the Cole lineups, but still get yourself some strikeouts, you've got options there as well. We have options in each salary tier for today. We're going to go through the top options in each salary tier and let you know who to target for today in MLB DFS. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to break down today's 8-game main slate with locks set for 7-10 this evening. No weather notes for this slate. All looks okay. A little bit cooler in a couple areas, but overall, no rain notes for this one outside of Seattle, where they'll probably close the roof there, but pretty much a straightforward slate for today, which we will happily take at all times. Also, a quick reminder, we got a big week ahead here on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Tomorrow, we're recording our PGA podcast for a major that's coming up regular time, 10 a.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube page, going up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Immediately after that, make sure you are subscribed there. We also have, I believe Tom Vecchio is going to be doing an NHL or NBA podcast once the NBA launches back up. NHL playoffs underway too. So a lot of reasons to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, no matter where you get your podcasts. While you're there, leave us a rating and review as well. Also back today, 4 p.m. Eastern, the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages to answer your questions about tonight's slate. Hey, baseball fans, tomorrow is Dinger Tuesday. It's $5 Dinger Tuesdays on FanDuel. All you have to do is bet a $25+ bet on the to hit a home run prop any Tuesday MLB game. You receive a $5 site credit, $25 max, for each home run hit in the game by either team, regardless if your bet wins or loses. Head over to FanDuel on Tuesdays to play the $5 Dinger Tuesday. Must be 21 plus and present in Colorado, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, or West Virginia. Refund issued as a non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $25. Terms apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. For confidential help in Michigan, 1-800-270-7117. Call 1-800-GAMBLER.net in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and or 1-800-GAMBLER in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Virginia. In Tennessee, call the Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Pitching preview for this Monday main slate. As mentioned, Garrett Cole is the guy at the top. He is $12,300 on FanDuel. Darvish checks into 11-1, facing the Rockies. Walker Bueller is $9,900. Got a fun pitching matchup himself. Yusei Kikuchi is $9,000. Madison Bumgarner facing Bueller. Then Taijuan Walker are the others at $8,000 or higher for today. A lot of good names in that list. A lot of names who can get you strikeouts, which means we do have alternatives to Garrett Cole for tonight. But I still think Cole needs to top our list from a pitching perspective because he's just too good. Even at $12,300, how do you say no? He's facing the Rangers. He's on the road. But it's a pitcher-friendly park, especially with temperatures starting to rise elsewhere. That's the situation where we see Texas lag behind, is when it gets warmer elsewhere. We're starting to get to that point right now. Cole also doesn't need that. He has just disgusting numbers this year. Across the full season, he has a 1.77 skill interactive ERA, a 41% strikeout rate, and a 2% walk rate. He's not allowing a lot of hard contact. So like the one issue you could see pop up with a guy who is getting this many strikeouts, he's not doing that either. The Rangers, roughly average from a WRC plus perspective against righties this year, but they do still have this high strikeout rate. It's 27%. So I still view them as a plus matchup, even though they have had decent results so far this year. And they're facing arguably the best pitcher in baseball. It's really hard for me to say no to all those factors. I don't really have to provide much analysis outside of that. Even on a slate with other good viable options, you can still absolutely target at 12 or Cole at 12-3. I will do so for today. He is my number one pitcher after considering salary on this slate. The second spot is more interesting because we got Darvish and Walker Bueller both there. And there are two things that push Darvish over the top for me And I'm going to favor him here over Bueller at $11,100. The first thing is hard contact. Darvish for the full season has allowed a 6.3% barrel rate. That's better than the league average and just a good number for a guy with a high strikeout rate. Bueller's gotten more strikeouts by leaning more heavily on his cutter, but it's also led to a spike in his barrel rate. He has allowed a 14.6% barrel rate in his past 5 starts. That is the highest mark on this slate. And that's going to impact our decisions because Bueller's been getting a lot of strikeouts, but he cancels some of them out by allowing earned runs. I'm okay with earned runs. They come with a lot of strikeouts. But if I have an alternative guy who doesn't give up those earned runs, probably going to go there instead. The other thing favoring Darvish is the matchup. He gets the Rockies, who have a 73 WRC plus against righties. They don't have a high strikeout rate, but the Diamondbacks don't strike out a lot either. That's who Bueller's facing. And their WRC plus is 20 ticks better. Might get downgraded with Carson Kelly being out, but a better offense than the Rockies. We can say that. So Darvish is at home, facing a worse offense. He's giving up much less hard contact. And that's enough for me to favor Darvish, even with the salary discrepancy. I will say, though, that after accounting for salary, I think Bueller and Darvish are in the same tier. So if you get a read that Bueller is going to be super overlooked, given Cole, given Darvish and others, I think it'd be justifiable to go with Bueller to get the popularity leverage over Darvish, but that'd be the one thing that would get me to go there. Otherwise, straight up, everything does favor Darvish for today. Among the lower salaried options, aka not those 3 guys, there are 2 guys I like a lot. One of them is Madison Bumgarner, even against the Dodgers. And we'll talk about him and things to watch. But my preferred option here is going to be Yusei Kikuchi at $9,000. And Kikuchi made a change recently where he started using his cutter as his primary pitch 3 starts ago. And that's something we saw Corbin Burnes do earlier this year. I'm not saying he's going to go full Corbin Burnes, but he's doing some Burnesy type stuff early on. He was about even between his 4-seamer and his cutter previously, but leaning more heavily on the cutter now, and it's paying off in a massive way. In the 3 starts with that cutter usage way up, Kikuchi has a 2.33 skill interactive ERA, a 33% strikeout rate, and a 5% walk rate. Now, the first rebuttal to that, it's a small sample. It's 3 games. Let's chill out here for a second. But he's done it against elite teams. He has faced the Astros, the Orioles, and the Dodgers before all the injuries occurred. Not all the injuries, but some of the injuries with Pollock and Seager. So that's impressive to me. The Astros are a team that never strike out, but he got 7 strikeouts against them. And tonight he gets a much easier assignment. He's facing the Tigers, and they have gotten better than when we talked about them last week, which was as expected given how bad they were, but still really rough against lefties, a 33% strikeout rate, a 57 WRC plus. I'm not sure if Kikuchi will continue to get a 33% strikeout rate this year. The cutter, if you look at the numbers on Baseball Savant, it's not a huge standout pitch from like a whiff perspective, but I think the bigger advantage in that pitch is that it keeps people on the ground. If he can generate ground balls, allow his other pitches to get strikeouts, that's probably going to be a good thing long-term for Kikuchi, even if the strikeout rate doesn't stay above 30%. But this matchup could keep them elevated for at least one more start. That, to me, makes Kikuchi make a lot of sense as a result at $9,000. And again, we talk about this a lot, but on slates where I have guys like Garrett Cole, I'm sometimes willing to ignore the value plays. Say, okay, I'll talk about this guy, but I'm not going to use him. I will use Kikuchi tonight, and I will use Bumgarner, who we'll talk about in things to watch. So although Cole, to me, is the number 1 pitcher, he is not number 1 where you ignore everyone else. I think that given the strikeout numbers Kikuchi's had, given how good Bumgarner has been, given how good of a matchup Darvish has, I think all those guys very justifiable for tonight. And I think it's a night where I will not be as concentrated on one pitcher as I usually would be for a Garrett Cole slate. Let's move on to stacks now. And last week, we had the White Sox facing J-Happ. And I had it as a secondary stack, talked about in things to watch. And I should have been much higher because the White Sox absolutely clobbered Happ. And now they get to face him again. I think they should be high on our list as a result of this repeat matchup. And you could kind of see that outing coming for Happ. He threw a healthy amount of four-seam fastballs in his first start, but lowered the usage in his second start. And if we look from that start on, he has a 5.25 skill interactive ERA with a 14% strikeout rate. In this time, he's allowing an 11.4% barrel rate. And when you allow a high barrel rate, when you have a low strikeout rate, that's rough, but it's especially rough when you're facing the White Sox. They were a team that was great against lefties last year, but they've also lost a couple of key righties. So what you want to do with the White Sox is make sure they're doing it again this year in a small sample where they haven't had Eloy Jimenez and for a lot of time, Luis Robert either. In the time that they've been playing so far this year, it's a small sample, but it's a 142 WRC plus against lefties for the White Sox, which is a massive monster number. I think it's wise to go back to them tonight and stack them to see if they can get to Hap for a second consecutive outing. It does help, too, that there are some value plays here. Obviously, like Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada, Jose Abreu aren't going to help you out too much. But Andrew Vaughn is interesting. He has been kind of forced into more playing time. It was really frustrating early on because he gets this call-up. He didn't get a lot of playing time. But now, because of all the injuries, they need dudes. He's a dude. He actually played pretty well recently. He has a 13.3% barrel rate for the full season. His expected WOBA is 362, and he's only $2,300 on FanDuel for tonight. So I think that Vaughn will be a focal point, hopefully allowing me to get more Anderson and other guys at the top end of this order. Might be kind of tough to stack them with Garrett Cole, but I do think that it's worth trying, and Vaughn makes it a lot easier. Vaughn also a good one-off for tonight. The Angels are a team I'd rather stack versus a righty than a lefty because two of the guys I am most fond of using here, Shohei Ohtani and Jared Walsh, lose the platoon advantage when they're facing a lefty, which is the case for tonight. But I still think they're worth it here against Sam Hentges. Hentges is making his second start. His first 13 2/3 innings haven't been bad. He's a 3.29 ERA and a 4.17 SIERA. But there have been some cracks when you dig deeper that could get scary as the sample expands and as he stretches out. Primarily, he's not getting whiffs. Hentges has an 8% swinging strike rate. His CSW percentage, his called strikes plus strikes swinging, is 22%. That's a good chunk below the league average. And that's with 4 out of his 5 outings coming in relief. Now you're stretching him out. That means the strikeout rate could come down, and it was already due for regression to begin with. That could lead to a low strikeout rate. He's not a big ground ball guy. He had a 35% ground ball rate in 2019. It's 44% in a small sample this year. He's allowing a barrel 11.6% of the balls in play against him. So I'm guessing from a profiling perspective, Hentges will likely be someone who gets a low strikeout rate and lets up some hard contact. That's the profile we want to stack against most of the time. And that might be true even with a less than ideal offense like the Angels here. So I do think that we should be looking to stack the Angels here, even though they're facing a lefty as opposed to a righty. One thing that helps, for me at least, is Taylor Ward's presence. He might hit leadoff tonight with David Fletcher being banged up, and Ward, unlike Fletcher, has a little bit of upside. He has a 7.7% barrel rate in a small sample this year. He can run a bit. He stole 11 bags in AAA back in 2019. So he's not the most exciting player, but he's $2,100, might hit leadoff, and there's a path to a good game in there. I can live with that. And using Ward makes it easier to get to Trout, Rendon, Upton, and then the lefties too. The lefty's still in play, despite the fact Hentges is a lefty. So the Angels hopefully getting us some value. Cole Trout lineups might be kind of tough, but I still think that they're worth looking at for sure. As far as the third stack goes, if you guaranteed me right now that Giancarlo Stanton would play tonight, I would rank the Yankees second from a stacking perspective. I like what they've got going quite a bit, and I could be down for that. I don't know if he will, though. It sounds like there's a chance. He was hitting in a cage yesterday, so let's go through the Yankees here and discuss how to handle them, whether Stanton plays or not. The Yankees are facing Jordan Lyles. Lyles is starting to get more strikeouts than he did previously. Over his past 6 starts, he is throwing his four-seam fastball less, which is probably a good thing, throwing more curveballs instead. And it has increased his strikeout rate to 21%. Over a 6-start sample, that's pretty much sticky. So it is interesting that his strikeout rate is up. Still some issues elsewhere with Lyles, though. He has a 10% walk rate. His barrel rate allowed is 10%. He's not getting ground balls. That's less than 30% of the time. And it's led to a 7.39 ERA. He's had a tough schedule, and 4 out of his 6 starts have been on the road. I just don't see enough reason to avoid stacking against him here. Maybe he gets better with the improved circumstances of pitching at home, but I do still think that we should be in on the Yankees here, depending on the status of Stanton. So let's talk about the Stanton dilemma here, because not having him would lower me if he can't play. They didn't have him on Sunday night against a righty, and if we look at that lineup, I'd be good using Luke Voit and Aaron Judge. I also like Gio Urshela, but it falls off pretty fast after that. So it's part about losing Stanton and that being a downgrade, because whenever you lose a good hitter from a lineup, that downgrades everyone. Fewer run scoring chances, fewer plate appearances, fewer RBI chances. It's a downgrade to everyone when you lose a good hitter in this lineup. But it's also part about just, it's harder to find 4 guys I want to stack. Gary Sanchez and Clint Frazier are fine, and I can use them, but it's not as fun as Giancarlo Stanton. So if Stanton plays, I would rank the Yankees second for stacking above the Angels. If not, they're probably ranked third or fourth. It is a decent downgrade to me without him. They'd still be a great place for one-offs in that scenario, like Aaron Judge would be great for one-offs, and some of the value guys too, but it would lower me on them for stacking if I can't get to Stanton, partly because it's just hard to get to 4 guys in that scenario. All right, let's finish up here with things to watch for today. I mentioned Kikuchi as a top value. I think that Bumgarner is firmly in the same tier as him. And based on the betting odds, I think Bumgarner's probably going to go overlooked for today. I don't think he should, because we talked last week about his velocity increasing, and his velocity actually went up again last week. It's going to go down tonight because he's pitching in cooler weather. So when you look at Bumgarner's velocity tonight, it will not look as high as it has been the past few starts because he's been in Arizona. He's in Los Angeles. I think it's in the 60s tonight. His velocity will go down tonight. But if we look at the 5 starts ever since his skill increase, I think that's the way I'd phrase it. Because it seemed like a tangible increase in velocity. He has a 2.72 skill interactive ERA with a 32% strikeout rate. Now, the Dodgers are still kind of scary, but hey, you take out Cody Bellinger, A.J. Pollock, Corey Seager. That's a lot of big bats to lose. It means we can target them with pitchers we deem to be good enough. I think Bumgarner counts as that right now, so I'm willing to use him at $8,600, especially if he goes overlooked. Based on the betting odds, I think that he will. So if you're looking for a tournament play who will be low roster but has upside, Madison Bumgarner to me might be that guy at $8,600. I mentioned before the Yankees might fall to 4th in stacks as Giancarlo Stanton can't go. The team I'd put above them would be the Mariners. They're facing Casey Mize, and he's improving. He's getting more ground balls. That's good. That's why they are ranked down here and not in the top 3. We can still get here for sure. The Mariners have a 96 WRC plus against righties. They've got Jared Kelenic now. Kelenic, still just $2,900. I think that's too low personally, and I'm still using Jose Marmolejos at $2,100, even though he strikes out too much. You know, we can get some value here. So if you want a value stack, like a strict value stack to go with your Cole lineups, the Mariners probably number 1 there. We can get value plays elsewhere, but a value stack, I think the Mariners do grade out pretty well. The final offense I'm okay with today is the Cubs. They're facing John Lester, so a John Lester revenge game here. David Ross, his old personal catcher, managing the team. A lot of narratives at play for this one, but Lester not getting strikeouts this year. He has a 2.25 ERA. He's doing a very good job of limiting hard contact, but I want to see more of that before I stop stacking against him. If we get to the point where his sample is 3 or 4 starts and he's still limiting hard contact, cool, I'll pull off. But for right now, I'm okay going with the Cubs. And the Cubs can occasionally get us some really good values like David Bodie too, so they can help your Cole lineups. So keep an eye on the Cubs, keep an eye on the Mariners if you need additional value for today to get to Cole, but I think we have some good ones in the actual stacks themselves, and you can always spend down for a high strikeout pitcher as well. That is all the time that we have for today. If I did not mention a stack or a pitcher you are interested in, make sure you tune back in 4 p.m. Eastern, the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. They're answering your questions for 25 minutes to get you set for that day's slate. Also, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. No matter where you get your podcasts, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, Radio.com, you name it, we're there. Make sure you leave a rating and review as well. If you have questions for me, I am on Twitter at JimSannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for setting up the video broadcast for today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups for tonight. We'll talk to you once again on Tuesday. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.